Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast. And today, my wonderful guest, all the way from down under, and from Melbourne, is Grace DeAngeli. Hello, Grace.
Hi, Gary. Great to be here. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Oh, I am so happy that you're here. I mean, we're going to talk about a obviously challenging topic, one that has affected your life, my life, and millions of others. But I can already tell we're going to do it with some levity, some honesty. We're here to help, not to be downers, right? I mean, we're here to get a message across. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. Looking
So
forward
if
to
you,
it.
if you don't mind, I'm going to read your little bio real quick, and then we're just going to get off. So, everybody, we've got Grace DeAngeli. Grace shares her biggest discoveries and life experience with raw courage and transparency. Grace will lift the veil on her personal healing and self-discovery journey, sharing the tools and resources that took her from almost taking her own life to becoming a breast cancer survivor, living happily and purposefully, and becoming the hero of her own breast cancer journey, and of course, so much more. So again, welcome, my friend. Thank you, thank you,
Thank
thank you,
you.
thank you, thank you. Like I threatened earlier, I just have my one question, and I promise I'll shut up and get out of the way. But because we're the What If You Could podcast, do you have a what if you could something you can share with us, or what if you could story, or what if you could thought you'd love to share with us?
Absolutely. So I think my what if you could would have been living um, my authentic self. It's something that I promote so much now because we live in, what other people might think or being something for someone else. So my what if I could was if only I could, or what if I could go back in time and start living who I truly was from the beginning and not put on a facade or a mask. So that's very big for me, absolutely, because I lost. I always say I didn't lose, but in a way I lost 47 years of my life being someone I wasn't. So that's my biggest one, I guess. Yeah.
Where where does that come from, you think? Where does that come from with us not doing that? Why do we lose so much time to that, you think?
It's a matter of like where how we're being brought up. It always goes back to how we're being brought up. And one of my mentors that I work with a lot is, always says, whose love did you crave the most?
Mm.
And you go on to that process and then you say, was it your mother's? Was it your father? Who did you have to be? So I always had to be the quiet one, the go-toer. I'll fix this, I'll do this, I'll be a people pleaser. And what was happening is in life, I was putting others before myself. Way before myself. I wasn't even looking after myself physically, emotionally, psychologically, or spiritually because my whole thing was, I need to be this good Italian girl. My parents are Italian. I'm first generation Australian. So I needed to be that. I needed to be the good Italian girl. Everyone, men come first, women come second, and things like that. So it was my environment. It was the way I was brought up. And, going forward, even with my husband, I've known him now 24 years. We've been married this year 15, but I always put him first. And it was like, oh no, no, you're the man, whatever you want to do. And so I wasn't being who I really was. So behind closed doors, of course, what are you doing? You're self-sabotaging yourself. You're bringing yourself back to that level, like he talks about the temperature level. You bring yourself back. So the moment I thought I could be a version of myself, my authentic self, it's not in line. What are people going to think? So I started to bring that back into, oh, no, 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 don't speak up, don't do this, don't do that. And it wasn't just with my husband and my family, it was with my work, my environment, my community, my friends. So it was something that I was pretending, I guess, but we all do it because the one thing we crave when you take everything away is love. So you think you're not good enough, and it goes down to being loved. And I really crave to be loved because growing up, in a family where my father would would beat me until I was the age of 29. I didn't feel the love from my father, but I didn't feel the love from my mother either because I was, I thought she didn't love me, but she was afraid of my father as well. So she wouldn't step up. So that's where I guess it all began. Absolutely. So that's why with, like I said, whether it's your environment, the people around you, whatever it is, the way you were brought up, it's definitely wanting to please people and not rock the boat, I guess. So yeah,
But you know what that plays right into, though? That plays right into our dis-ease, right? So all that
absolutely.
pain and suffering and everything that we swallowed and everything that we've put into our body that we hold on to creates this dis-ease, which turns into disease, right? And whether it manifests itself in your cancer, your breast cancer, my wife's cancer, some other mental, physical disease and ailments, right? It comes from what we've done to our genes, what we've done to our DNA, what we've done to our brains. It's amazing how we can do that to ourselves, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I always say to people, when I got diagnosed with breast cancer, was I surprised? Of course I was. But was
No,
I surprised? No, I wasn't. I
no.
wasn't because I was not being consistent. And when you have your soul sort of fighting and trying to find who you are because you're playing a game, you're not consistent with yourself. It was actually the way the body says, exactly like you said, it's a disease because it's the body saying, hey, I'm trying to wake you up here. You're not being consistent with yourself. You're
Mhm.
lying to yourself. Don't worry if you're lying out there, but you're lying to yourself. And that's where the body says, okay, I'm going to have to give you something because I need you to take a look at yourself.
Yeah, I
And
know that when I got my cancer diagnosis, I was mad, first of all, because I'm super healthy. I'm like, this is bullshit. I cannot have cancer. I'm so freaking healthy. And it just turned out it was a virus, it was HPV cancer. It was a different type of cancer. But I knew immediately, right after that, I go, son of a bitch, because I knew those couple of years previous to that, I've been going through a lot of really deep mental challenges and grief from my wife and just stupid shit, right, that I did to myself. And I knew right then, I said, I freaking gave this to myself. I beat myself down to the point where my immune system broke down and because we all have cancer in us, right? It let that sucker out of the bottle and I did it to myself. I was pissed.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I was as well. Like at first, it was like, well, in my case, it was quite interesting because I was like, what do you mean? I'm doing everything for everyone else. I'm a good person. Why? And that why did this happen to me? Well, why not? Why not? Who are you?
Yeah.
So you're not any special. Sorry, Grace, but you're not special. But it was like, why? I did nothing wrong. I give to charities. I love animals. It means absolutely zero because it's not consistent with what's going on in the mind and the spirit. And that exactly right. I could tell you to the cows come home how everything was, why me? I'm being the good wife. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But when I look at it, I was jealous, I was resentful, I was angry, I was everything. So yeah,
And we don't
absolutely.
want to make people sound like, all right, douchebag, listen, you gave yourself cancer, right? So screw you. We don't
Yeah,
care. Take your ribbon and shove it. No, that's not what we're trying to say here, right? What we're
no.
trying to say is that there's so much more to being a cancer person, cancer survivor, cancer victim, cancer, whatever you want to paint it with all the stuff, right? We have to take a step back and realize there's so much more to just the actual diagnosis, right? I mean, there's so much to more what we have to open our eyes to what's happened.
Yeah, we do. We do because that's what took me on my journey. Because when I say to people when I was first diagnosed, if I could share the story just quickly, I was actually so my mother had cancer. She died of of uterus cancer. But she
Mm.
also got a secondary cancer, which was breast cancer. So we don't know which one's first, breast cancer or uterus. And so we were putting on a recall. Every year we're on a high risk, we're putting on a recall. And every year I got the you're good, see you in 12 months. And in 2018, I'm on my way to go and see my husband who's doing a spiritual journey in Peru. And I get told, oh, we found something. And I'm like, well, I'm on my way overseas. So come back, I do the biopsy, and I find that, yes, it is cancer. So that's where my journey started. But what did I do first? And again, this is my story. I always say disclaimer. But what I did was I said well, the first thing we did is we told my husband, my saint, said to the doctor, can we have 2 weeks? And she said, absolutely. Now, you know yourself, you go in there and they're like, no, we've got to go in, we've got to smash this out, we've got to get it out, da, da, da. So imagine saying, no, I'm going to take a step back and really look at this whole thing. And I put 5 people, I call it my dream team. I called on 5 people I wanted, and we came together, and I actually used this like a project. And I said, right, guys, this is what I've been diagnosed with. What's the best thing? And, I had people who were into holistic, people who were into medicine, Western, people who didn't know the difference. And I had them all there to talk and sort of do that. And what they decided was, Grace, why don't you start on your psychological and your spiritual journey? So that took me to Peru. So that's where it started, because I knew, like I said before, when I got diagnosed, I wasn't surprised, because inside my soul, it was just destroyed. We had a 7-figure company, 40 staff, and 24 hours before I was diagnosed, we lost everything. So you had all that stress. You had, what am I going to do now, sort of thing. So I needed to get I always say I had to heal myself from the inside out. And funny enough, how you mentioned it, which is so true. When I was drinking this plant medicine in Peru, as I'm lifting up the cup to drink it, I hear the words, you did this, you fix it. And that I still get goosebumps today, because it was my self talk saying, you fix this, Grace. Don't blame anyone else. Don't blame anyone else. You got to
Okay,
fix it.
we got to go way back now. Okay, you just covered way too much great stuff here. So we got to back up. Okay, okay. So you were doing spiritual journeys around the world, and you just happened to be doing a spiritual journey to Peru right before you found out your diagnosis?
Yeah, well, my husband was on a spiritual journey in Peru when I went to catch up with him. And then I went back 2 weeks later. After I got diagnosed, I went back and did my own spiritual journey in Peru, which was with plant medicine. Now, a lot of people, I'm sure you've heard or probably haven't heard, out there's this ayahuasca. Everyone's doing ayahuasca. It's like, but this wasn't the medicine of choice for me from my maestro. He's got, between him and his family, they've got 140 years of experience. So what they did is they brewed 6 different plants to help me through my journey. And so I drank that twice a day, every day for about 2 weeks. And his wife would physically administer it physically on the outside of my breast for 2 weeks. So I did that. But when people say, well, how did that heal you? Absolutely, because when you work with plant medicine, it brings up the spiritual side of you. So it brings up a lot of things. It's not things that you've never seen. It brings up things that you know about, but you've actually pushed it right back. So it was bringing up stuff physically, emotionally, purging. When we say purging, I was crying, I was laughing. There was a lot of stuff I needed to release, a lot of stuff. So that's why I say I had to heal myself from the inside out.
I
Yeah.
want to I want to touch again on I want to go back to that, but I want to touch again on what you said about what so many of us experience, and it's such an important thing what you said, and that's why I want to call back to it is, you know, they did it to my wife, they did it to me, they did it to you, they did everybody. Say, oh, okay, you've got this type of cancer. Wham, let's go in, let's get your port done, let's schedule your chemo, let's schedule your radiation, let's schedule your surgery, let's do all this. And most of us just do it. Right? I mean, I went from my diagnosis to having my teeth ripped out to having my surgery on my throat to having my radiation and my chemo. I mean, within like weeks. I mean, most stuff wasn't even healed when they started the next stuff, right? But you stepped back and said, whoa, whoa, whoa. Well, hold on a minute, Tonto. Hold on a second. Now I get the diagnosis. All right, I fucked up. Here's the deal. I get it. All this shit. But I'm gonna take a step back for myself. I'm gonna put together my journey team, which is an awesome quote, which I'm gonna use over and over. I'm totally stealing that. And you said, I'm not going on the hamster wheel. I am not going to let you just throw me in the hamster wheel of what, they just go cancer for dummies and go to page 97 and go, we're going to do this, right? And so you took charge of that, which is a hugely important thing that people get to need to understand is you can control this, and you did.
Absolutely. The one thing I will say, which I use it for myself now, is when I was putting my dream team together, one of our friends was actually going overseas, and I really wanted him to be part of my dream team. So we called him. We're in the car park still at the doctor's surgery, and he said to me, Grace, whatever you do, and I still get goosebumps, whatever you do, don't what did he say? I've lost my train of thought. But what he said was, don't make decisions based on fear. And I thought, that is so right. Because going back to my first surgeon, she asked for an she said, I need to do a lumpectomy and I need to do I need to take some nodes out. And I said, okay. However, Grace, you need to sign this paper because if I can't find your nodes, I'm going to do an auxiliary clearance of all your nodes. And that's why we were like, well, hang on a minute. This is not sounding right. And like I said, lucky my husband was there. I, honest to God, he was sent as a prayer because I was ready to sign when he said, Grace, wait a minute. So telling the doctor, it's quite interesting, and I say this now to breast cancer patients, you have time. Unless you have a life-threatening illness, you have time. So take that time and get the bigger picture. So that's what I did. I did the bigger picture and I said, well, hang on a minute. What is a lumpectomy? What is a clearance of your nodes? What does that all mean? What if nothing is in my nodes? I'm just going to end up having, is it lymphedema? I think it is, where your arm is all
Yeah.
swollen for the rest of your life. And I thought, no, 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 I need to do my homework. So this is why my dream team was there as well. So doing the plant medicine wasn't the only thing I did. When I say I tried other things, I'm not going to sit here and say I tried everything because that'll be a lie, but I did try other ways. I did Ayurveda. I'm not sure if you've heard of Ayurveda. So
Oh, of
it's an
course. Yeah.
ancient, right. Again, that was detoxing my body, my spirit, my soul. I needed to cleanse. If you ask me, why did you do that? Why did you need to cleanse everything internally and externally? It's because I needed to be in control. My mind needed to be in control. If people have so much fear, like you said, oh, do this, and wham, 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 and the thing is, someone sees the doctor as their God and they know what's best for me. No, you know your body better than anyone. And like someone I interviewed said, your body will never try to kill you. And I thought that is so true. So what you're doing is if you feel good, you feel good. Right now,
Yeah.
did you feel good? Yeah, my husband say it all the time. Do you feel good like when I was going through it? Do you feel good right now? So I feel amazing. Do you feel sick? No, I don't. So you know you better than anyone. So, again, this was my journey. So I got diagnosed in August, and by the time I went forward, I did Ayurveda, I did the plant medicine. I was continuing to work on myself. I was doing things for myself. I started speaking up. I started being verbal. I started saying no to others and more yes to myself. And then if you fast forward it to December, because they kept saying it was growing. So fast forward to December, I went to my GP and I said, I need a second opinion.
Hmm.
That's the second biggest thing people should do. Get a second opinion. Because if Dr. A says exactly what Dr. B says, you're good.
Yeah.
So I went to Dr. B, which is now my breast cancer surgeon that I go to every year for my follow-ups. And she looked at my reports from August, September, October, whatever it was, and said, let's do a lumpectomy. And I said, I really don't want you to do an auxiliary clearance. And she looked at me like I just asked her for her firstborn. She was like, what are you talking about? We don't do that. She said, I just take
Awesome.
out two nodes to make sure.
Hmm.
Now, by the time I had done everything, My this is a true story. So by the time I went to my maestro rang and he said to my husband, I just want you to know that your wife's going to be okay. I just know it. And my doctor in Ayurveda said it's either shrunk or it's gone. By the time I was operated in December, they did a 10 centimeter axillary clearance and found nothing. Now, again, this is my journey, but I need to make sure that people understand this. My surgeon still wanted me to go and see an oncologist and a radiologist. Guess what I did? I did go and see them. I went and saw them with more than 20 questions. You can't answer those 20 questions. Next. So I went in there, and what happened was with the radiologist, I asked questions, and they're not questions of, because I've seen so many what radiation does, how it burns your skin and things like that. But it was more what's going to happen in 12 months? What's going to happen in 5 years? What's going to be happening in 10 years? And do you have someone who's 10 years later I could speak to? First and foremost, they're going to use that whole private confidentiality with patient doctor. And I thought, whatever, people on Facebook love sharing their stories. So I thought that was great. But what happened was the cons were higher than the pros.
Hmm.
But this is for my case. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to do radiology. I'm going to do radiation. So I went and saw the oncologist. And now the oncologist wanted me to do tamoxifen. Now, tamoxifen is one thing my sisters told me do not take because that's what gave my mum the secondary cancer. So I went in there as a woman. I'm 47 and I said, well, what are my choices? Tamoxifen. What are my other choices? Have a hysterectomy. But what does that do? Well, it puts you in early menopause. You'll have the risk of a heart attack or a stroke is a lot higher. Your hormones will kick all this. It was a mess. Then I said to her, well, what are my other options? She said, you don't have any. So she put it in her little stat machine, which I loved. And it came up that I have a 0.8% chance of getting a secondary cancer in 5 years and a 0.08% in 5 years of the cancer coming back. So I said to her, thank you. I'm going to take the decision not to do any oncology.
Mm.
And I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try holistic. Now, the words she said to me after that, I'm almost 7 years now. And it was, I don't have time for you. Get out of my office. And that was the moment I realized, well, you're not here to be part of my dream team. You're here to go against what I'm saying. And this is the fear that they keep pumping into you. And I was like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And I've heard my surgeon, when I bring other breast cancers in there, say, you'll die. And I just look at her and think, you can't say that. Don't say those words. So that's where my journey started pretty much, but it's still going. When I say it's still
Yeah.
going, I'm still going.
When you, when you, I want to go back to the spiritual journey thing. You went to Peru, but before that, had you been, that what you said was an annual thing where you did these spiritual journeys?
So with that, yes. So what happened was we were introduced to plant medicine probably back in 2010. So
Mm.
we were going to Peru because here in Australia, you're not allowed to do it. So what we would do is we would go and have these spiritual journey. But my husband was doing it more than I was. See, this is where it was we were clashing. We were clashing. And I speak openly about my everything. There's nothing that I don't put on the table. And my husband started to go on this spiritual journey. And I was still working in construction. So you can imagine someone's going on this spiritual journey. And he was almost like Dr. Phil to our staff. And I'm going on this, I'm in construction, very masculine sort of energy. And that's where we were clashing. And in 2017, we almost divorced over it because what I wanted is him to change and I wanted to change. But I started slowly going into the medicine work, whereas he was in more. But ever since then, so 2010, we've been going. And yes, I went to Peru. We're actually going the end of March again to Peru to do some more work. So I went last year in May. So every year or twice a year, we go on these spiritual journeys. And you probably think, but haven't, like, why do you keep going? Didn't you fix everything? And I think, no, we're like an onion. We're going to peel back. There's so much.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
childhood trauma for me.
But that
There's
that had to
relationship
be
trauma.
that had to be really fortuitous. I mean, it really had to be a part of, had you already been experiencing that, give you that little kernel of, there's alternative ways to look at these things. There's different spirituality, there's different holistic approaches, there's an Eastern, Western medicine. So that was really fortuitous for you to have already been experienced that. So when you hit the cancer, you were able to step back and go, whoa, whoa, there might be another way, right?
Well, yeah, but yes and no, because I was still in the construction mind. I was still a worker, 9 to 5 worker. So it was my husband who was a bit more ahead of me,
Yeah.
to say, hey, let's take a step back. But uh, I think if exactly what you said, I think knowing, like, especially knowing that this cancer wasn't just a physical thing, it was an emotional, a psychological, and a spiritual thing that I had to fix. And a lot of people, like you said, my life was great. Oh, my life was fantastic. And when I speak to women now and they go, oh no, then I start looking at them a little bit closer and then you see whatever it was. Now, I'm not saying every person has to have massive traumas. It could be stress. Stress is huge. It could be a trauma you held back. It could be bullying. It could be anything it could have happened in your 20s, could have happened at the age of 5, could have happened in the age of 30. But what happens is we hold that in. We lock it away and we don't talk about it because the thing is that my mentor just recently said, which was great. He said when someone said, "Oh, it's a long story," and he said, "No, it's not. It's a short story." He said, you're just." Oh, he used this metaphor of saying, not a metaphor, but to say like you're creating it into a long story because you haven't found the solution. And I thought that is so true.
Awesome. That's awesome.
That is so true. So what happens
Yeah.
is we create this long story because we haven't found the solution. Because I guarantee you, when you find a solution, it's a short story. It's a short story.
Yeah.
So what happens is we create this and we end up being in that poor me mentality. Oh, if I tell people I have cancer, they're going to feel bad for me. They're going to love me more. I have a personal friend who I adore who said to me, she's now fighting stage 4 cancer and said to me, Grace, I did this to myself because I always resented my family and I wanted my family to step up and look after me. And I thought, wow, you asked for the worst thing in the world. So, and that's what it was. It was like, now you have to look after me. And I thought, this is the thing with people who are going through cancer or have been it. Some of them still live in that look at me, whereas I don't.
Yeah.
It's like
You
an
have
old
to,
handbag.
you can't own it. It's interesting when the different people we've met along the way on our journey, first with my wife and then with myself, the different ways people take the cans. Some people want to do the marches and the ribbons and all this sort of stuff, and other people are like, no, because I'm not cancer. This isn't me. This is not who I am. I've got something that I'm going to fight, get rid of, and I'm going to move on. This isn't who I am. I'm not a cancer victim patient.
Mm.
But tell me about your journal. So how did the journal
Mm.
show us your journal?
So
For
that's my
those of
journal.
you who are seeing it, you can see the breast cancer. Is it Heroes?
Yeah, hero's journey.
Heroes Journal. Okay. So people who
Yep.
can't see it, too bad. You're gonna have to Google it and look it up and buy it. So how did the journal come about? What were you already in remission, or was this something used during your cancer?
Wow, I love that question. So when I was going to my appointments, I was carrying self-help books. I was carrying a journal to write my stuff, how I was feeling. I was carrying a diary to write my appointments. I was carrying books about breast cancer. So I had a backpack full of books. I was carrying this thing around like full of books. And my husband would say, "What is in there?" And I'm like, "No, no, you don't understand. It's everything I need." I even had mandalas because while I was waiting for my scans and things like that, I was trying to get myself in a calmer sort of, mindset. So I was reading about what are some things I could do moving forward. So it was all of this stuff. So what happened was because it was a backpack, I thought, you know what? This is too heavy. So what I started to do is, yeah, because then women started saying to me, "What did you take?" And I'm like, "Well, it's this book, this book, this book, this book, this book, this book, this book." And there's nothing wrong with that. I have a library full of different types of books. But what I did was I combined it all into the one because it's everything in here. So you've got a journal, you've got a diary, you've got self-help, you've got quotes from women who have gone through breast cancer. So I wanted to inspire those that are going through breast cancer to read the other quotes. I also have information about breast cancer, the different types of scans and things you might go to. I have questions. Now, these questions I put together with my breast cancer surgeon, what to ask when you're diagnosed with breast cancer. And they're all these questions you should ask. And I always say you can always ask more questions because any surgeon can answer those and more questions you might have. So what I did was I combined it. So there's mandalas in there, places to doodle, things to do, taking a break. What are some things to do? What I need to do is I need people to understand that they have to start living their authentic self. So if there's something that you love doing, do it. I talk about detoxing in there. I talk about forgiveness in there. Whether you want to forgive yourself or the person or the situation, it's all in there. So I just put it all in a really thin book, as you can see, as opposed to a backpack full of different types of books. So that's where it came about. So I still use mine. It's actually in my bag because as of tomorrow, I have my annual checkup. So I take it with me everywhere. I still write in there. I still go back to how I was. And the best part is it, if I can say, Gary, is I go back to where I was and I look at how far I've come. And that just gives me more, it allows me to be more at peace with myself and more in control of everything around me. So I love doing that. It's really great. Absolutely.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, control, you just use the word control, is such a crucial part of this whole journey, right? Because we don't think we have any control once we get cancer, right? We got the oncologist, we've got the doctors, we've got the chemo, we got the radiation, we've got a surgeon, we've got the checkups. We get that scan anxiety, right? It's like, oh, I've got a scan coming up, oh, I got scan anxiety, and then, geez, why is it taking so long to frickin' tell me what the scan said? You looked at it when you were in there, right? Why do I got to wait 3 frickin' weeks? And I got scan anxiety the whole time, and I remember when my wife April was going through it, Live Strong was a big thing with Lance Armstrong. Lance Armstrong wasn't the villain that he is now. He was the hero back then. And so he had a great journal, the Live Strong journal, and we all had the yellow Live Strong things and stuff like that. But having the journal to kind of keep your thoughts together and kind of relax a little bit, and also having it give you control is such a great thing. That's an awesome, thing that you put together there.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, it was bits of things that I was using. So because I knew that it was helping me along the way. And that's what I came back to. I came back to not creating something that it doesn't resonate with others. It's things that resonate with everyone. So that's why I wanted to create that. And in actual fact, I kept getting asked, is it just the breast cancer one you have? Do you have one for all cancers? So I'm in the process of creating that. But it's more like, you know, it's, I guess, like we know, Gary, if you got to talk about a type of cancer, it's the cancer you have. So I'm an expert at it. So I'm not going to sit here and be an expert with all other ones. But having said that, still under the same umbrella. So the process and the emotional side, the psychological. So that's where my journal, sorry, comes in, is because it's on this side. It's the physical side. You're working with your dream team, your medical team, whoever you decide. But it's more on this side because you want to be stronger when it comes to looking at your journey. Because I always say to people, it's like a puzzle. If I have a jigsaw puzzle in front of you and it's in pieces, and I say, well, make a decision what you want to do, you're going to say, I don't know. Well, I don't know what it is. Whereas if I put the whole puzzle in front of you and you look at it and you go, oh, I get what this is, and maybe I'll try that. And I think always great, try it. The one thing I'll never tell people to do is I will never say not to do chemo radiation. That is not up to me. You have the final decision. Even with my dream team, I had the final decision. What I will say though is keep your options open because there's so many things out there you could do alongside chemo and radiation. Things like hyperbaric oxygen chamber, things like red light saunas, depending if you have had radiation or chemo. Um, there's also protocols, as in, like, using types of vitamins and minerals just to replenish your body. There's so many things out there. Meditation. You want to be in a strong mindset. You don't want to go in fear. And if I could just say was that, Gary, when I first got diagnosed and my first scan, which was 6 months, I didn't live for 6 months because I was in so much fear. Like you said, the anxiety. Now, this is a true story. I had my scans done first week of February. First week of February. I go and see my doctor tomorrow. There was no way in hell in the beginning would I even wait 2 hours because my doctor, everyone knows her. She gets the results in 2 hours.
Right?
There is no way I would have waited this long. But why? Because first of all, I have faith that everything's okay. Second of all, my breast cancer surgeon, if there was something, she would have dragged me by the hair already and
Yeah.
said, you need to come and see me. So, having said that, I believe my results are good tomorrow, but it's important that you keep that up as well because a lot of people, I might be going a bit too quick here, but a lot of people, once they get over that initial, and then they say, okay, now you're in remission, or now we're just going to slow things down, they go back to their old selves. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. Sorry, guys. It doesn't work, you know.
No, that going back to the fear though, it's such a the thing I love about what you're talking about, right, is number one, taking control. Number two, trying to not be living in fear, not living in anxiety, not thinking that you can't do anything. It's like, well, I'll just wait till the doctor tells me what to do. Get the chemo, get the scan, get the this, get the that. It's like, no, no, no. In the meantime, I mean, we grow aloe vera at our house because we live in a desert, so it's easy. We can just rub it all over. It's great for the face. I'm 97 years old, but I rub aloe on my face all the time. But you can, but there's so
Oh, I
many.
was going to say, I need to come and get some
I'm
aloe
not
vera then.
97. I want to make it to 97, so I got to stop this bullshit with
Right.
all this other diseases I'm getting. But it's knowing that you can take control. And I think that's one of the most challenging things for folks. And that's one of the things I love that you're preaching so hard, because that's what I try to preach to people too. But even if they go, yeah, 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 I got it, I got it, I got it, they don't feel that they have control. They're like, yeah, okay, I believe I have control, but I really don't believe it because they don't want you to believe that.
No, no. And the crazy thing was, where you want to hurt yourself, stay strong, be strong, have courage. All of these words to me meant BS. Let me tell you. I was like, I have no idea what you're saying until I felt it. I had to feel it. And it's so true. I started looking at this thinking, well, if this is going to take me, I'm going to die standing. Because what I meant by that is I'm not going to lay down. My husband will let me lay down. There were days where I wanted to cover myself with a blanket. My
Yeah.
husband would open that curtain, tell me to get up, get out of bed, fix the bed, go take a shower. You're not laying down. So I went forward that way because it was really important to get yourself in that mindset. So I started taking my breast cancer as a handbag. I say to people, if you break your arm, you're not going to sit at home and go, sorry, Gary, I know
Right.
you invited me to a barbecue. but I can't come because I broke my arm. Yeah, sorry, Gary, I can't go to a concert because I broke my arm. No, what do? You put it in a sling, you adjust, you adjust your mindset, you adjust yourself physically, and you move forward.
You know,
So I was you.
when I had my radiation, I didn't mean to catch up, but when I had my radiation treatments, I looked at the folks in there and they were just such great people. And I had to be there 35 times. So you get to know these people and stuff. But I made it my mission every morning that when I went in there, I was going to be ask them about their day. How was their weekend? How are you guys doing? Try to crack a joke. I always wanted to make them feel good because I know they were dealing with this crap all day long. They were zapping people. People were, your skin's coming off. They're feeling horrible. They're throwing up. They're stuck in that mask. And I just was like, that was my mission. That if I went in there to make them feel better, I would feel better. And I remember they'd always comment like, "Dude, you're our favorite patient. I swear to God, you always come in here in a really positive attitude, even though we're gonna fry the shit out of you and you're gonna hate every second of it." But it's a mindset, right? Like you said, you don't go, I'm not going to go out and see you guys for coffee or tea or go to the barbecue because I have cancer, unless you're really hurting. I mean, sometimes that chemo really kicks your
Absolutely.
ass. But if you're just depressed, you got to get your ass up, open up the blinds, and go out and live because that's part of the healing, right? That's part of the fight.
Yeah, and it's a huge part. It's a huge part because the thing is, the mind is can go so against you, and we all know. Some of us, I say it all the time. Would I be friends with my mind? Hell no, because my brain, my mind is so negative,
Our
and
mind, my mind's a scary place to be. You do not want to spend any time in there, all right? I'm just
that's
save
what I
yourself.
mean. That's right. So you wouldn't spend time with your mind. So what I had to learn to do is the moment I would see fear coming, it was like a moving cloud. I would see it. I wouldn't judge it. I'd say, I know where you are. I know what you're going to do. You're not suppressing it. You're just watching it with no judgment. It takes a while to do that, of course, because you're like, well, why do you keep coming up? Why do you keep coming up and telling me I'm going to die? Why? What's the fear behind it? Do the why? And believe it or not, most of the time, I'm not saying all the time, most of the time it's a fear of not living. So there you go. So you think, well, you know what? And going back to the medicine work, a friend of mine who she came with us to Peru, she was like, "Oh, I need to know what death is because stage 4. I want to know what death is. I want to know what death is." And she was told, when I say told, again, it's an internal message. Um, you're dying anyway, so why don't you start living?
Yeah.
And it's not dying as in because the cancer is going to kill you. We're closer to death than we are closer than anything else. So it's like, well, you're closer to dying anyway. Why don't you start living? And I thought, oh, that is so true. So you've got to make sure that you control the mind. The mind will have you stuck in fight or flight. And I think there's a
It's our
new one,
it's our
fight or
mind that
flight or
freaking
freeze.
it's our mind that might have put us there in the first damn place. I mean, because we all have, like I said, we all have cancer in us, right? I mean, whatever turns that switch, some people it'll never come on. And for me, it came on later. I mean, I got mine at 59. I'm 61 now. But you know, what do you think of staging? What do you think of people being so like locked into what stage of cancer they have? What do you think of that?
That is a great question because when I get told, oh, well, what would they know? They're only stage 1. And it's like it makes no difference. Yes, the doctors tell you the stages because, if you're diagnosed with a tumor that's like 5 millimeters and you're diagnosed with a tumor that's 50 millimeters or more, that's where they call the staging. But on a mental note, it doesn't matter. But I always say to people as well, but you got to remember, you were stage 1.
Yeah.
The warning signs came, but you
Yep.
ignored it. So
Exactly.
when you sit there and tell me, oh, but what would they know? They're only stage 2. I'm a stage 4, metastasize or metastas or whatever they call it. It's like it means nothing. It means nothing. Because
Yeah.
I personally know of someone stage 4 metastasis, breast cancer, who got diagnosed the year before me. She's still with
Yeah.
us. She's still with us.
Yeah.
And let me just say, I want to take her brain and study it because she's so negative. I'm surprised she's still with us. But she's an exception. Let me tell you, she's an exception. But she's an amazing person. Don't get me wrong. I love her to death. But it's like she's diagnosed before me. She goes around telling everyone she's dying. Yeah, girl, you're 9 years, and
Yeah.
I'm like, it's okay. But that's what it is. And that staging, like you're talking about, it really locks in. It really, it's like doctors telling you you have 2 years to live. We know of a gentleman who was diagnosed with bowel cancer. He got told 18 months. Let me tell you, Gary, 18 months to almost the day, and he
Yeah.
passed away. It's like, I know, I know, I know, I know. And that's how this mind, I always use the analysis. If I'm talking to you and we're obviously like in the same room, not on a Zoom, and we're both drinking a coffee, and then 5 minutes later I go, oh, I've got a stomach ache. I think that coffee was bad. I think I'm feeling nauseous. All of a sudden, you're going to go, you know what, Grace? I think I feel nauseous as well. It's how powerful the mind is that'll make you believe it so much. This is why when they say believe the good, great. Because if you believe the bad, it's going to go, well, Grace wants more of this. I know, because she keeps thinking she's going to die. So this is what she wants. This is
Yeah.
what she wants. So
And
you've
that's
got
why
to
a lot of
match.
things, I mean, some groups are good. Like you said, I mean, in Facebook, I got a lot of really good information on a Facebook group that I joined for my cancer. I found out a lot of things that helped me, and then I shared a lot of things that, helped other people from what I went through. But a lot of other groups, like men's groups that I went into when my wife was sick, was a disaster. These people were freaking horrible. I could not wait to get out of this group because I'm like, you people suck. All of you dudes are assholes. All right.
Yeah,
Because
it's
I
true.
mean, it was just like a bitch session, or yeah, I'm cheating on my wife because, we can't be intimate, or, I wish this would hurry up. I mean, it was like horrible stuff. I'm like, dude, just don't go there. So, yes, people can make it through there when they're negative. But your body will respond to what you're telling it in any, even non-cancer related, right? So you've got to try to at least give it as much as you can, as much ammunition as you can. So you might as well try to be positive instead of being negative, right?
Absolutely, I agree because it's true because it's you like I said when you hear I don't want to die, the mind doesn't hear I don't. It hears
Yeah.
want. It hears want. So it gives you what you want. So and a great example of these Facebook pages, absolutely. I posted something that I went through and I got told, "Oh, I don't like this group because there's too much promotion." And I'm like, "Where am I promoting? I'm telling you, listen, I got 5 people in my dream team. I'm
Yeah.
sharing it. How am I promoting it? It's like, oh yeah, it's too much. And I thought, no, it's because you want that poor me. I
Yeah.
have no options. There is absolutely nothing out there I can do. I'm just, there's no hope for me. And they live in that. And when I first started doing, helping women, I couldn't get on these Facebook pages because it was giving me anxiety.
Yeah.
I was
I
like,
agree.
this is horrible. This is really horrible. I had to go in and find because, like you said, oh, yeah, or you must have heard this as well. Don't you just love how everyone has an opinion, which is great?
Yep.
Everyone has a story.
Yep.
Oh, Grace, yeah, my sister's cousin's auntie's nephew's daughter died. I don't want to hear that. Why don't you tell me about your sister's auntie's nephew's daughter who's now 20 years cancer free? I want to hear that. And it's
Yeah.
it's like, nah, the doctor told me there's no hope, I'm gonna die. I hear stories all the time, Gary, of people who've been given 3 months to live, and now this is 5 years later, 10 years later. If God forbid that was me, I'd be calling that person who's 5 years. I'd be stalking them. How did you do it? How did you do 5 years? Because that's who you got to look up to. When I hear of women who go, I've been cancer free 20 years, that's where I want to be.
Yeah.
I'm looking at, you're my hero.
And it's
you
it's
know?
kind of like, it's kind of like AA in a way. It's kind of like Alcoholics Anonymous. It really is one day at a time. And that's what I tell people because I talk to a lot of people with cancer and I want to try to encourage them and things like that. And I tell them, dude, every day there is a new treatment. Every single day. My brother worked for Kaiser Hospital as a chemo pharmacologist. He mixed up the drugs and he's like, dude, he goes, I mean, every day we come up with something more, something more, something more, something more. You just have to get through another day because all of a sudden tomorrow they might go, we have something for stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Who knew, right? And with AI and how fast they're coming up with different things, you don't know. So to just be woe is me, I'm going to die because they said I'm going to, isn't acceptable. That's totally an unacceptable way to go through this. If you're doing it, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to make you feel bad. What I'm trying to say is stop it. Don't make me come over there.
Yeah.
Stop it. Get out of that Eeyore mindset of the dark cloud and go, okay, I just have to make it again tomorrow because tomorrow they might have another thing. Every day you got to fight for one more day, right?
Absolutely. And it's quite interesting you should say that because I have a lot of women who now, because they got told that it's uncurable and things like that, they get their life insurance. And then they're like, well, I'm going to go and buy my parents a house and then I'm going to buy a car. And I say to them, don't do that. Keep the money. Because you don't know whether in 2 years from now there's this miraculous drug. It's probably going to cost you $500,000. You've got it, whatever. You can't go up to the oncologist and say, "Oh, by the way, I want that. Here's my house. It's as a
I
down
can't do
payment."
it. That
So
reminds
that's
me of
where,
something though. You said that you wanted to do something in Australia that's not allowed in Australia. Are there a lot of laws against different treatments? I'm sure there are here too. I just haven't paid attention. But does Australia forbode you from doing certain treatments?
well, the thing is, it's not such the treatment. It's the plant medicine work. So anything that
Hmm.
can heal you naturally, they it's a shutdown. So any of that. But having said that, you've
Uh,
obviously heard of ivermectin. Everyone's talking about
yeah.
it, ivermectin, fenbendazole, and all of that. Now, what my fear is with that is not because it'll be, I fear, this is my hallucination, that the moment, if in the unlikely case that does become something that helps cure cancer, it will be shut down. It would be taken off the market. It'll be hard to bring in. Now, when I think about bringing it in, I've got clients that have brought it in from Egypt and India. So I'm thinking, okay, these are these places that are going not behind, the federal government here in Australia or anything like that, but there are other avenues of getting it. Because if I went to my doctor and said, I want ivermectin or fenbendazole, if I, God forbid, had cancer, I think my doctors will be like, no, 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 because why? That doesn't make money. Now,
Mhm.
this is my hallucination. When I walked into Peter Mac, which is the hugest cancer center hospital here in Melbourne, I thought I was walking into the seven-star hotel in Dubai because it was luxury. And I know with stats that it's 1.5 million Australian dollars per 5 years of a cancer patient. And I'm like, 1.5. And now we know, Gary, as well. We went from 1 out of 100 to almost 1 in every 4 people. Now, 100 people, you've got 96 people. Now, I can't calculate, but 96 times 1.5 is
Yeah.
a lot of money, and
Yeah.
it's not going towards the cancer research. It's going to this, let's keep them. We don't kill them because we don't make money, but we
Right.
don't make them healthy because we don't make money. But this
Yeah.
again is my hallucination. So what happens is my fear is there are certain things, and particularly plant medicine. It's the same with the US. You're not allowed to do it because why? That thing helps you, and like one of the ladies that I interviewed, she's heard of ayahuasca. She said, Grace, that's like 10 years in 1 week. And I said, yeah, it is. So
Wow.
imagine that. psychologists wouldn't have a job. We've taken psychologists on these journeys.
Yeah.
We've taken psychologists who say to us, wow, I need to go back and revisit what I've been like telling my patients, because it combines it. So anything, I guess, having said your question, anything I think that's good for you, they'll shut it down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I
because
mean,
it's
if
not,
you go, we go to Mexico a lot, right? Because we're divers and we love to go to Mexico and dive in warm waters and things like that. But literally, um, they didn't have half the issues with the COVID that America had because they all took ivermectin. They didn't even think twice about it. I mean, it's like 2 cents to go in and buy it, and they took it, and it helped, right? And in America, they're
yeah,
like, oh, horse dewormer, you crazy bastards, don't you dare touch that stuff. And it's like, well, because if we take this and hydrochloroquine or whatever that stuff's called, and we get better, that completely screws up your whole right? Your whole story
yes,
about we can only take this, right?
yes,
And so it's the
yes,
same thing with cancer. There's so many alternate different. It's like I have a
absolutely.
good friend of mine who her cancer has come back, so she went home to Germany.
Mhm.
And I'm like, why are you going back home to Germany? She's like, because I can get treatment there that I can't get here. And she goes, I love America and I love your healthcare system, but you guys won't let me do things that will help me get rid of my cancer. In Germany, they will. It's so bizarre, right?
Yeah, that is, and I hear that all the time, where certain restrictions, because again, my hallucination, I believe that, in certain parts of the world, I'm not saying everywhere that everyone's bad, but in certain parts of the world, they want their people to survive and thrive because it brings in the population, it brings in the economy, it brings in a healthy country. Whereas other ones are like, they're greedy, and they're like, no, 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 we want to keep you at mediocre. And, going back to that C19, which was just a shamuzzle, exactly like you said, take away stuff that works and reintroduce, well, this is your only option. And now we could see we're not silly to see the consequences of that, and fair enough if they said, listen, we found out that taking the vaccine for the measles works for C19. You'd be all for it because what? It took 50 years in the making. So you'll be like, okay, I'll take that vaccine. It's not a problem. So yeah, you know what I mean? But
Yeah,
this is what it is. It's every country has its own jurisdictions on what they allow and what they don't. And definitely healing the soul. God, what are you thinking? Don't do that. Don't
don't do
do
that.
that.
Don't
You
don't
know?
try any herbal things. Don't try aloe vera. Don't try any supplements. Don't
Exactly.
try changing your diet. Don't go this. Don't do that. Just trust the science. All right, we're gonna jab you full of shit, and it's gonna be way better. Trust me on this one. It's like,
Yeah. And
what? Your
unfortunately,
your
sorry, go on.
track record with me is not real good. I think I'm gonna try something different.
Yeah,
Right, right.
absolutely.
So,
And
Grace,
and
listen, what I just have to ask. I mean,
oh,
you've been so great, gracious with your time. I love everything that we're covering here. Um, but so, what is next for Grace? What is Grace gonna do next with this journey? We're obviously not going to get cancer again. Your remission is gone forever. So, what's next for Grace? What's your mission now?
well, helping women just diagnosed with breast cancer is something that I really thrive in because again, I when I say just diagnose, I want the women to contact me before they make any decision. You know, contact me. I will help you put a plan together, talk you. Oh, I go to appointments, whether it's on a phone call or a Zoom with the doctor and themselves if they're overseas, or if they're physically in Melbourne, I go with them. Why? It's because you need someone there with you, not because I've been there, done that. It's someone who's going to write down notes and understand because they're not in that bubble of fear, So that's what's where I'm thriving. The other thing I'm thriving was eventually, when, selling my books and things like that, I want to be able to create a pool where women who want to have certain types of scans done and they can't afford it, we can touch this pool. What I mean by that is here in Australia, you do get free mammograms after a certain age and ultrasounds you've got to pay for. But like this year, I didn't want to do a mammogram. I wanted to do an MRI because the MRI is what picked up my breast cancer. But MRIs are out of pocket. So what happens is it really limits what type of scans you can do. Now, there's so many brand new scans out there that is not a mammogram because for a woman, that does hurt, let me tell you. Um, so I want to be able to put a pool together where it raise money. So when women who need to get scans and they're not being diagnosed, because that's a thing, because unless you are diagnosed, then some of the scans you get for free. But hang on a minute. I want to make sure that my body's good, that I don't get diagnosed. So I want to put a pool of, create a pool where women could come and say, listen, I really want an MRI or I really want another scan done, and what we could do is we can fund that for them. So that's something that I'm thriving for going forward. But right now, I believe that my story is to be shared and not kept for myself. So therefore, I'm at service. I'm at service for others. That I created my podcast as well because I wanted women that have got all types of cancers, well, mainly breast cancers, but all different types of breast cancers and how they are today. I want really to emphasize that no matter where you are, whether you're living with an incurable cancer or whether you're living with a stage one where you just need a lumpectomy, I need women to start thriving. And what I mean by that is really live their authentic self. So this is 7 years in the making for me. This is where I'm going, and this is where I continue to go, is just being, you know, someone who actually shares their story and really helps others. That's why I've created the Breast Cancer Heroes Journey Journal. I'm creating one for cancer, but I really want to be there just to inspire and help other women go through what I went through as well. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. It's funny about what you say about the mammograms. Yeah, they hurt. And I had a friend who sent me a little meme, a little cartoon where, you know, to explain what meant to men, what it was like for women to go through mammograms. And the doctor, he walked into the doctor, said, "All right, take your willy and put it in between this toaster. We're gonna squeeze that willy together
Exactly.
and check to see if it's okay." That's like getting a mammogram, dude. Okay, now you know what
Absolutely.
your wife goes through.
Mm.
That's great. Well, I love your journey, and I lied at the beginning of the podcast. I completely lied. I'm a liar. I confess. I said I only had one question. I lied. I have two questions. So I do have one last question,
That's
but I don't
fine.
give you this. So if there was a thought that Grace had, a saying, a thought, just something that would really meant something to Grace that she would like to share with everybody before we skedaddle. What would that one thought be? What would you like to share to kind of leave us with?
Absolutely. That one thing which I have in my book, and it just popped up as well, is breast cancer will never define who I am.
Mm,
Never.
I love that. Yeah, and no cancer should. Again, like we said, don't wear it. Get through it. We all wish the best for everyone who's going through this vicious, horrible animal. And I love what you're doing. You're doing so much. So how do people reach you? What do you have going on? You have the journal, you have the podcast, you have speaking. Tell us where we could reach you and what else you have going on so that people can contact with you.
Sure. So if they go to gracedeangeli.com, they'll find everything there. They will find my journal. They will find my podcast, Breast Cancer Heroes Journey. They'll also find that if they want to work one-on-one, like I was saying, there's also a page there what I offer as well to be part of your dream team. I should call it part of your dream team, but I called it mentor. But that's what I am. I'm part of your dream team. And it's really important because I have women who approach me who don't want family to know what they're going through, but they still need the support. So yeah, you can reach me there. You can follow me on Instagram at Breast Cancer Heroes Journey. I'm on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, yeah. Grace DeAngeli. I'm everywhere. I'm everywhere. Just Google the name Grace DeAngeli. I don't know if you do it, Gary. Once in a while, I like to Google my name. Make sure no one's talking bad about me. Kidding, kidding. So if you just put in Grace DeAngeli, you'll find
Are you on
everything.
Facebook?
I'm on Facebook as well, yes. So Grace DeAngeli on Facebook as well. So you'll
Okay.
find me. As I said, just go gracedeangeli.com and all my links will be there. Absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, I've been on your site and I've, seen it and what you do there and what you offer there, and it's really awesome. And you're an advocate for women who are suffering from breast cancer. You're a hero, even though you probably don't like that term, but you are, and it's wonderful what you're doing, my friend. So everybody, this was Grace DeAngeli. She is there for you. She wants to be part of your journey team. She wants to be part of your dream team. Please find her journal. Hold up the journal again. We love the journal. What's it
Absolutely.
called? One more time.
Oh, there you go.
Breast Cancer Heroes Journey Journal. It's a wonderful thing, and you're a wonderful young lady. And I appreciate everything you're doing, kiddo, and thanks for being my guest today.
Thank you for having me, Gary. I really enjoyed today's podcast and I really enjoyed being in your company. I really did. It was a great podcast. Thank you again. And I wish
Thank you.
you all the best.
Yeah, you can't get rid of me. No way. They won't kill me.
Good. I'll see you at 97.
Exactly. All right, my friend. Thank you. All right, everybody. Another episode of the What If You Could podcast. And thank you so much for joining. We'll see you later.